Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at my favorite team for the Holiday Cup. I got up to Vetaran with this team, and not only this, we're going to have here today 16 battles in 16 minutes, which kind of showcases how fast this team actually works. And honestly, I had so much fun playing this one. We're going to have the Shadow Alolan Golem with a Rock Throw in the lead. We're going to have in the back the Smackdown variant of our Chestnut, which is also really fun. And then we're going to have, of course, our Breloom in the back, which is basically there to try to counter those normal types, which are kind of common in this meta, but also just kind of, it's just a fun Pokemon. Like if we take a look at the top Pokemon in the meta, basically Breloom beats them all, which is kind of wild. And here we're gonna see as well how funny like Chestnut with the Smackdown is. We're going to be able to do a ton of damage there. They're going to have their Whimsicott in the back, and now I can swap back into my Alolan Golem, and I can just go ahead and farm them all the way down. I actually would not even say that this team is toxic. The only toxic Pokemon you might say is the Shadow Golem here in the lead, but otherwise, like you're going to have Breloom, which is not really considered a toxic Pokemon, and I don't think that Smackdown Chestnut is considered toxic, but it's still so insanely fast to win games with this team. So let's move on to the next game. We're going to have a Frostlass in the lead, amazing lead for us, so we can stay in here and we can see what the opponent is going to decide. If they stay in, you're just going to use a shield and farm them all the way down, because you're going to be able to just get a ton of energy. And with a Pokemon like this, we're going to be very good against no matter what is coming in, because they have also Wild Charge, which just hits everything. And now we're going to be able to go into our Breloom against the opponent's Lantern. What you kind of want to do here is you kind of want to not use a shield, because at least when they go for Thunderbolt, you're still going to be able to survive one, you're going to not be able to survive another one. Breloom is insanely squishy, but we can at least still go for 2 Seed Bombs, and like this, we're gonna get both shields from the opponent. I can swap out into my Chestnut, the opponent decides to just forfeit. Next opponent coming through, okay, lead force. What we're going to try to do here is to catch the next charge move. 6 fast move it is for 1 foul play, so we're going to go into our Chestnut here. It's going to be resisted, and so it does basically no damage, and they decide to go to the Charizard, and we can say goodbye to the opponent as he can just go for a superpower against the incoming Sableye. And this is the fun thing about this team. Like, I just love the idea of having a Rock-type Pokemon in the lead, and then having Chestnut, a Pokemon that's double weak to Flying type, as a Safe Swap, but with a Rock-type fast move to completely destroy any kind of Talonflame, any kind of Charizard. It is just so much fun to play this team. We can just go for a Wild Charge here as well against the opponent, just gonna do a ton of damage against the Lantern. Now we have a 2 shield advantage for our Breloom, and nearly everything dies to Breloom with 2 shields advantage. The opponent decides to forfeit again. Next opponent coming in, let's take a look what they're going to run. The Alolan Sandslash is kind of a core breaker for this team. I mean, like, the backline is okay for it, it's just a little bit tricky. I tried to catch a Drill Run here, the opponent decides to go into the Dragonite, and they have to face off against the Smackdown variant of the Chestnut again. Like, so many people fell for this kind of bait here, which is just ridiculous. We can go for some superpowers against the opponent's Alolan Sandslash as well, which is kind of nice. But we have to see here, we're gonna actually be able to reach another one, which is kind of amazing. So the opponent has now the 100 energy, which is kind of annoying, to be fair, but we can still swap into our Breloom. And I just had to hope that they're gonna go straight for the Drill Run here, expecting my other Pokemon, but they decided to go for the Ice Punch, which is a little bit awkward. And they're going to have the Jellicent in the back, and I misplay this quite a bit. I could have went straight for the Wild Charge, which would have been enough from this range already to knock them out, which would have been the best play that I could have went for. But I decided to go up for like a little bit more energy here, go for a Wild Charge, and we can still reach the Rock Blast. We're just gonna get the knockout against the opponent, and this is going to be a good game here as well. Those games are just rapid fire, it's wild. Great lead for us again, Skeldritch in the lead. We can just stay in here, we can go for the Rock Throw, they decide to swap out into the Sableye, and I can just swap out onto that charge move again into my Chestnut. Chestnut is pretty bulky at least, so we can still easily survive this one. But the next one going to be a little bit more tricky to take, so yeah, I'm going to decide to let this move go through, and I make a little bit of a mistake in this game. Because I overfarm by a little bit too much, I thought that I can still go for another one afterwards. They can actually still go for another charge move, and luckily the opponent decides to let this move go through. It's spoiler alert, because I still remember this game. But this is going to allow us to align our Pokemon, which is definitely very good for us, but still not going to really help us too much, because it's still going to have that shield disadvantage. But we're going to be able to get the opponent's shield here as well with the Rock Blast against the Skeldritch. And so the opponent swaps out into the Trevenant, and yes, Trevenant is tricky to deal with for this team. I had to try to catch a Seed Bomb here, did not work out at all. And so this game is sadly over at this point. Like, there's no lot that I can do about this matchup anymore. If I caught the Seed Bomb, maybe I still had a chance, but like this, there's no way that I can win this one. Next opponent coming through, again, another pretty difficult Pokemon to deal with for us. Pelosand is going to be tricky, but we're gonna get out the Litleo, and again, they cannot fall for the bait of the Chestnut as they can go ahead and go for a charge move here. This is going to be able to get the shield from the opponent. I can let this move go through. It's going to be the Crunch, actually, which is interesting, which does not knock me out, which is a great play by them because now they can get more farm. And I can still go into my Golem, and I can go for the full farm now before they can even do anything. But we still have to deal with the Pelosand having a double super effective move against us with the fast move as well. Scorching Sand is really awkward. We can still get some damage here onto the opponent, but I'm forced to use a shield if I still keep my Pokemon around. And I'm gonna swap out here immediately into the Breloom. They're going to have the Vigoroth, and I make a mistake. Honestly, I make a mistake. I think I might have been still able to win this game if I had played it differently. But what I decided to go for is, I'm going to decide to go for a shield, and I guess this is still fine, but I have to maybe go for the... Okay, never mind. I actually didn't make a mistake. I thought I would have still got to the Seed Bomb prior, but I didn't. But, so the opponent just going to sadly outspeed me here, and going to be able to have their Pelosand against my Golem. Kind of hard-walled. It is what it is. Nothing that I can really do about it, and we can move on to the next game. Next opponent, let's see what they're going to run. Lantern in the lead is pretty bad, but honestly for this team it does not really matter too much, and I'm going to try to catch a move here, trying to catch a Surf, as this is the best play that I can go for. And the opponent is going to decide to go for the Surf here, but I don't know if they saw that I have Smackdown. They definitely did see that I have Smackdown, but they decided to go into their Ferrothorn, and this is just a Power Whip. So, I'm definitely going to be able to reach a Superpower against the opponent now, which is going to be amazing, because the Superpower is going to do a ton of damage. Stab move, super effective, does not get the knockout, but I can even reach another one afterwards, which is going to be really good for me, as this is gonna get the knockout. And so we can realign. They swap out into the Frosters, and so I'm in a great spot now. I can go for the Rock Blast, try to get the shield from the opponent, and I can still align my counter user later on against the Lantern, which is still, of course, a grass type as well here against, like Force, which is going to be fine. But they decide to swap out here, but I can actually go into my Breloom before they can go for the charge move. And what I decide to go for here is I decide to let this move go through, and I decide to not go for a charge move. I know that they're going to outspeed me here, but I did not want to give the opponent's Frosters any farm down, and so I kind of just want to go for the full farm down with my Golem here against the opponent, because they should be low enough, and they decide to forfeit as well. Next opponent coming through, what do you do against Skarmory? This is actually an interesting matchup for us. You're going to try to stay in for a little bit, and you're going to go for a Wild Charge here now afterwards. So you usually go for a Sky Attack, then use a Shield, and then decide to do whatever. But what we can do now is we can swap out into our Chestnut. If they decide to swap out for whatever reason, which they usually don't, you're still going to have your Breloom in the back, which actually has a decent matchup against the Skarmory, because counter is neutral and their fast move is also neutral. But we're going to get out the Altaria, and this is a team that I actually encountered like 3 times in like the 4 sets that I played, which is Skarmory, Altaria, and the Shadow Dragonite in the back. There was like one case where they actually had a Lantern in the back, which was better for me, of course. But it's a tough one to win against this team. I think I won 1 time against the exact same combination. I lost 1 time against it, and then there was one with a Lantern, which I was able to win as well. This is actually the one with a Lantern. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be able to win this one, because we're going to be able to go into our Breloom. Breloom has access to Seed Bomb, and also still going to be able to do a ton of damage against the opponent's Skarmory. But what is actually kind of funny here is my opponent makes the perfect play, catching the Seed Bomb onto the Skarmory, which is fine for us, because we can still just farm them all the way down and get to another Seed Bomb immediately afterwards, which is all it takes to knock out the opponent. And so this is going to be a good game for us as well. Luckily, this was just enough farm down to knock them out. Next opponent, let's take a look. We're going to have the Shadow Dragonite in the lead. That's going to be okay for us, as they're going to be able to just go for the full farm down. Just use a shield, keep your energy. The Wild Charge usually going to give you the shield back anyway, and we can swap out afterwards as well. They go into the double. I can go for the Wild Charge, which should give me hopefully the shield. Let's see. It does, and I can swap out now into my Chestnut. They go into the Skeledirge, but they're going to see now that I have Smackdown as well. I have a Frenzy Plant for them as well, and it is looking really good for us. Frenzy Plant coming through is going to get shielded, and they can not even go for the full farm down, and so it's just going to be Breloom against a double, and they decide to forfeit this game. Next opponent. Another Dragonite, another basically the same output here. We're going to be able to just go for the full farm, and we're just even going to get a little bit more farm, I guess, with like 1 more fast move, which is kind of cool. So we're going to use a shield here. We can just go for the full farm now, and we're going to have a Wild Charge stored. They swap out into the Lantern, I think, and I should stay in for 5 more fast moves, or like 3 more or 4 more fast moves there actually, but I decided not to. And they're actually going to have a Charger Bug in the back, and they fell again for the bait, I guess. I mean, okay, they had to swap out at this point, so it was kind of fine for us. But yeah, again, Smackdown Smackdown is doing super effective damage against the opponent, which is wild. We can go for the superpower, which is gonna get the shield from the opponent. And so I can let this next move go through as well. I can just go into my golem. I don't even have to really shield here if they get to a move, but they don't even get to a move anyway. And so I can just go for a wild charge. I don't even have to shield this one anyway, so I don't even have to go up to the wild charge. And now I have a Breloom with a shield advantage against the Lantern, and this is going to be a good game. There's no lot that the opponent can do there, and so we can move on into the next game as a Seed Bomb gonna get the knockout. Next opponent, Decent Lead Force, again, alone 9 tails is going to be fine because we can just go for the smack down or like the rock throw down here as the opponent decides to go into the Altaria. Difficult scenario for us because we're going to be forced to swap out here. Issue is just that the Alolan Ninetales is going to be a little bit too tough for my backline to deal with, and so we're going to be forced to swap out. The opponent can still get to another move, which is going to be amazing, and so we're going to try to go for 2 superpowers against the opponent's Ninetales. Let's see if we can actually go there, or if this is going to, like, they're most likely going to shield this one, and I don't get to the next one, which is kind of unfortunate, but I can still just go into my Golem. Golem is going to do a ton of damage against them, and I decide to go for a shield advantage Breloom. And maybe this was a mistake because now the opponent is going to get a ton of damage, like half of my health with like 2 charms, but actually they're going to have a Lantern in the back, and so we're going to be able to just go for 2 more charge moves, and the Seed Bomb already going to get them basically into counter down range, which is just absolutely wild. Next opponent is just going fast here, like literally it's just super fast. Horrible Lead Force again, Dunsparce, you're just going to try to catch a move here onto our Chestnut, didn't work out, but they swap out into the Frosters and kinda fall for the bait again. Which is really cool for us because we can force switch advantage now, as well as we can get some energy advantage as well with that. I just gonna go for the Frenzy Plant, and what I should do is just use a shield afterwards and farm them all the way down, getting up to a superpower, which would be perfectly fine for me. If they go into the normal type, I'm gonna do a ton of damage. If they go into something else, I'm still going to be able to realign, but they're actually gonna go into a Galarian Zapdos here. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky one, definitely a huge core breaker for this team. I can go for the superpower, which is going to be resisted, but here I can still go for a rock throw at least, or like rock blasts, which is kind of nice for me. I'm gonna get the shield, but I was scared that they would swap out, but they never swapped out, and so it's going to be a Dunsparce against the Breloom, and they decide to forfeit again. Next opponent, a Golem against Skarmory. Again, same play as before. You stay in until they throw a charge move. You throw your wild charge because it's the safest play. If they let this move go through, they're just gonna vanish basically, so that's going to be the best one that you can go for. And if not, you swap out into your Chestnut and just go for the Smackdown. You might have to use 2 shields, but you're gonna get a ton of energy in the meantime, so definitely worth it here. As we're going to see as well, the opponent can go for 1 charge move, but yeah, you might have to use another shield afterwards, but it's going to be okay. They're going to swap out into the Altaria, and again, this is going to be the line most likely with a Shadow Dragonite in the back, which is a little bit tricky to deal with because we have 2 fighting type Pokemon in the back, and having 3 flying type Pokemon against 2 fighters is a little bit tricky to deal with. But here we're still gonna do a ton of damage against the Altaria, allowing us to swap out into the Golem, and I decided to let this move go through, hoping that it's going to be the Lantern again. But as you're going to see very soon, they're going to have the Dragonite, and so we're going to have to forfeit this game. Next opponent, Lantern in the lead, going to be okay. We're going to see here that we're going to go up for 6 moves again, and then we're going to swap into our Chestnut. They decide to not go for a charge move, but they decide to go again into our Frosters, allowing us to go for the Frenzy Plant, forcing a shield from the opponent. And maybe I can go for a switch advantage again, depends on what the opponent wants to do here, also what I want to do here. If they're triple X, I think this would be a really bad matchup for us, by the way, because they would be able to boost through us. But like this, I can realign, which is going to be very fine for me. Avalanche coming through, going to get shielded. The opponent decides to swap out into the Vigoroth. I can go for the superpower, force a shield from the opponent, and like this, it's going to be fairly decent for me, hopefully. But let's see what we can do here, and we can still go for a Surf. But I am actually going to be able to survive it, and I make a mistake here. I should have went for 1 more fast move first, but it's okay. And I make another mistake here as well, I think, because I should have went straight for the Seed Bomb. I just needed to get the opponent low, like the opponent's Vigoroth. And here again, I should have just went for the Seed Bomb as well, and just went for back-to-back Seed Bombs against the opponent, which would have been able to win me the game here, because now I can still go for a charge move with my Golem, which wins CMP, and I just need damage onto them. Like, if I just went for the Seed Bomb, I would have been fine. If I just went for a charge move earlier as well, I would have been fine. It does not matter, but I just completely misplayed this game. Could have been an easy game, but let's take a look at the next opponent. We're going to have the Skarmory in the lead, going to be okay for us as they swap out into the Greedent. this is something where we can just swap out into our Breloom. We can survive those body slams fairly easily. I'm not sure if a Seed Bomb is going to knock them out, so what I'm gonna do here actually is I'm gonna use the shield. I am going to be able to just go for the full farm down against the opponent, as I now have a ton of energy. And again, they don't run air slash anymore, so we're going to be able to take neutral damage from the steel wing. So we can hit them with a dynamic punch and force another shield, as well as get them insanely low. So this is going to be nice because they don't even shield, and now it's a dance boss against our golem, which I'm going to just send in there to soak some energy, and our chestnut, which is going to be able to resist every move that they're going to go for. And my play here is basically just go for the full farm down, and I decided even to catch a move here just for the fun, as this is going to be resisted and does no damage. So let's move on to the next game. Last game for today, like honestly, so many super short games. Like I didn't even cut out like the long games or whatever. This is just how this team works, and it's just so insane to have like one set in 10 minutes is just really wild. So like if you want to get your battle stun fast, like this is a team that works out insanely well for me, is able to counter most of the meta Pokemon, and it is completely anti-meta. Like you barely see any of the Pokemon here. You might see sometimes a Chestnut, but usually they don't run smackdown on you. And here I should have went for my Seed Bomb maybe a little bit earlier. It doesn't really matter because the opponent decides to use a shield, and so at least I'm gonna be able to get a ton of energy with my Chestnut. Chestnut is gonna be able to survive this Thunderbolt fairly easily, and I can just go for the full farm down against them, being able to get a ton of energy here as well, as we gonna end up here with nearly 2 moves. But no, they decide to swap out again into the Charger Bug. I can go for the full farm down, and they have a Dragonite in the back, and so a Lowland Golem is going to be able to completely sweep the opponent's team here, going for another Rock Blast and getting a triple kill for the final game here, showcasing kind of how strong this Pokemon is as well. And so this is going to be it for this game. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and check out here my nice Vullaby that I was able to catch, and me reaching a Vetaran with this team. So super fun team, definitely recommend it to you, and I see you then. Bye bye.